All right, good day, good morning, good evening, and welcome everyone to our August Dev Meetup. This time we're going to be focusing all about AI agents, and I could not be more excited. But before we dive in, let me just go ahead and introduce you to our speakers. We have Jason, who is the Director of Product Management. Some of you who have been attending our Dev Meetups before are already familiar with him. And we also have Charlie, who's going to be demoing our AI agents today in action. And I'll just go ahead and outline the agenda for today. So first off, what have we been up to in the Pathfinder community? What's been happening this month? We'll quickly talk about that, and then Jason will walk us through AI agents in enterprise automation. And then quickly, Charlie will go ahead and demo the AI agents in action. And then we'll have a Q&A with our product managers. And then we're going to talk about our upcoming events and how you can stay in touch with the Pathfinder community. So before we go ahead, go and show our speakers some love. Keep those fire emojis coming in the chat, or at the bottom of your screen, you'll have those react buttons. Go ahead and yeah, exactly. Do what you're doing. All right, a few housekeeping rules before we begin. So today's webinar is going to be recorded, and the recording will be shared with you after the event. And also, this is going to be up on our Pathfinder blog, along with a recap of the highlights of today's event. So just in case you miss anything, you can always fall back on that Pathfinder blog to catch up. And all attendee lines will be muted, but if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them at the bottom of your screen in the Q&A panel. It's the same if you're joining from a laptop or from a mobile. Just submit your questions in the Q&A panel. And if you have any issues with your audio or video, please feel free to let us know in the chat. All right. Oh, and to reiterate, please submit your questions in the Q&A panel because we do tend to reserve the chat for wholesome banter and emojis. So we might miss a few questions if you don't put them in the Q&A panel. All right. Safe harbor disclaimer. The information in this presentation is confidential and proprietary to Automation Anywhere, and it may not be disclosed without the express written permission of Automation Anywhere. Also, we're going to be making a few forward-looking statements in this presentation, so please do not rely on this information to make any major purchasing decisions. All right. Now let's get into the fun stuff. Pathfinder chapter meetups. We have been doing a few in-person Pathfinder chapter meetups. We just completed one in Bangalore at the beginning of this month, and we just wrapped up one in Mumbai on Saturday. And this was the inaugural Pathfinder chapter meetup for Mumbai. So if you were there at either of these events, let us know. Put an emoji in the chat or put an emoji in the React section. Just let us know if you were here. And we are also bringing the Pathfinder chapter meetups to a few other cities, but please stay. We'll be announcing them at the end of the session. So, just stay tuned till the very end to hear where we might be coming next. I'm now going to hand it over to Jason to take us forward.
Thanks, Shreya. And thanks to everyone that's joined today. We're really excited to take you through some of the new updates that are coming into our AI Agent Studio offering and talk a little bit about how you can actually potentially get access to a preview of our new class of AI agents. So let's go on to the next slide, which I think it does a really good job sort of representing where everybody that's participating in building automations is at in this sort of very transformative time with the introduction of generative AI a couple of years ago. And it's very evident from the poll results that a vast majority of you are still in the stage of exploring what you can do with generative AI in automations and probably other parts of your business, as well as a relatively new category of that around AI agents. Now, you may remember we launched AI Agent Studio well over a year ago. And at the time, it was very focused on making it possible for you to go and safely and responsibly utilize generative AI in your automation. So AI Agent Studio brought capabilities such as model connections to connect to a standard set of sort of the leading models, as well as any other model you might want to connect to. The ability to take those model connections and then build AI skills on top of that. And those AI skills can be utilized within automations. What we've seen, though, in the last year is really a modernization or a redefinition of what an agent is. And so, in the next couple of slides, I'm going to take you through sort of our definition of AI agents just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And then from there, I'm going to hand it over to Charlie, and Charlie's going to actually take you through some really new, exciting updates that we're bringing to the platform. Next slide, Shreya. So let's just kind of recap and just make sure everybody is on the same page of why we think capabilities such as AI agents and agentic process automation is really so important. In this kind of sample example, and this is something we actually worked with a customer on, historically, this order fulfillment process really would have taken multiple hours to go and complete. Now, when we think about a total business process historically, and if you're building on top of, RPA, or if you're even taking advantage of our intelligent automation capabilities today, realistically, you're probably only able to go and capture about 60% of the total business process. That remaining gap that you haven't been able to really automate today usually requires humans to be involved. And the reason those humans have to be involved is because they have years and years of experience working through the steps within this business process. Typically, they're doing things like pulling data from multiple different systems, they're analyzing that data, and then based upon their experience, they're making decisions and they're taking action. And the reason that that's been really difficult for us to go and automate so far is there's a myriad of different decisions that a human could take. This is where the power of generative AI really comes in. What we've seen with customers that have started to adopt not only our agent technologies, but also design patterns is that generative AI can simulate the decision making and the analyzing of large sums of data way faster than we can and with a very high level of accuracy. And so, as this technology continues to improve every month, every quarter, we're seeing the acceptance rates of agents by humans really start to drive up. In the next slide, let's take a look at what we actually mean when we talk about an AI agent. So we refer to agents, and honestly, Charlie and myself, I think we both like to think of them almost as these digital coworkers that work on our team. There was an event held here in the U.S. a couple of weeks ago. It was a CIO event, and I had a colleague that attended, and she said the main speaker made a remark that said the next person you hire for your team is not going to be a human; it's probably going to be an agent. And we believe that this is actually a very, very real outcome for many people within our organizations because agents are now able to go and solve business problems in a way that traditional RPA and automation just wasn't able to do in the past. And when we talk about agents, we talk about agents in the way that they have access to these generative AI models. And as I mentioned earlier, A360 is a very open platform. We have pre-built connectors for the sort of leading models on various different hyperscalers. We know a lot of you work at organizations where you've had big investments in AI already. You can build your own models and bring those in. You can take advantage of models in open source as well. Now, once you get access to those models, what most of you have probably found to date is that there is an opportunity for these models to sometimes not always, provide the right information. We call that hallucination, and that hallucination can easily be mitigated by taking advantage of different practices or approaches. The most common being retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. We have a native RAG offering within our platform called Enterprise Knowledge. But again, we're an open platform. If your organization has made investments in AWS or Azure or GCP or other providers, and you've got a RAG capability and model that you've been using somewhere else, you can easily tie that in. Now, not only will you need to give the agent access to a model and sort of grounded information, you also need to go and give it a role and a goal. And these roles and goals really help shape the way in which the agent operates. We believe that agents are most effective when they are specialized, they are focused on a core set of tasks or task even. And after you've given them a role and a goal, you can give them access to tools. Now, in many other platforms, especially if you've been working with open source agent frameworks, you'll note that tools typically is going to be some kind of code, traditionally Python code, or calling out to web services or something like that. On our platform, tools are automations. So all of the things that you and the teams have been building over the last several years on top of the A360 platform, those task bots, those API tasks, those user forms, Those are all tools you can take advantage of right now. So you basically got an unlimited library of tools that you didn't even know you were curating over the last several years. You can now take advantage of those in agents. And of course, agents can call other agents as well. Now, along with everything else we build within the platform, especially within the AI Agent Studio offering, there's a surrounding of governance. So Charlie's going to actually show you how, as you're building these agents and you're running these agents, you can get deep levels of insights and visibility into exactly how the agent is performing, the steps it's taking, the reason it's going and calling that particular tool in that particular order, and how ultimately it went to go and achieve its goal. All right, next slide. So yeah, we're going to jump into kind of our perspective of the agent market, because I do want to share with you just a little bit of thought leadership. I don't think that all agents are created equally. We typically see, really, when we work with customers, three different sort of general categories of agents. The first on the left being what I like to refer to as personal agents. So these are going to be agents you're probably already using today. It's things like Microsoft Copilot, Glean, Writer, or others. These agents are focused on making your job a little bit better, a little bit easier. For instance, you might go out to a writer to help draft some content for an email you want to send, or maybe use Microsoft Copilot to go and take that Excel workbook and turn it into a presentation. But that's not really driving, mission critical business processes and digital transformation across the entire organization. The second type of agent we often see with customers is going to be agents that are focused in these systems of record. So that's going to be systems like SAP, Salesforce, ServiceNow, and others. They are all building and shipping agent and agentic capabilities, and those are fantastic. However, what we find is that most customers don't have business processes that just live in a single application. They typically span multiple different systems of record. And that's why we really think you need a platform like A360 that provides this enterprise-wide process agent capability. We can connect into multiple different systems of record. You can build agents on our platform with those integrations. You can also take advantage of agents that exist on other platforms as well. Now, in this particular area, there are a lot of emerging standards that are coming out. You may have heard or even started to play with capabilities like MCP that was authored and initiated by Anthropic, or A2A from Google. We are involved in both of those standards as well as a few others that are emerging, and we're working really hard with those vendors to make sure that they are enterprise ready. As they become available, we're going to bring those standards natively into our platform, and we're actually going to start doing that with capabilities in the MCP space starting as early as next year. So keep on the lookout for updated developer session on how you can start taking advantage of tools built on top of the A360 platform, usable in other systems. All right, let's go on and go into the next screen, Shreya. Just wanted to call out that recently Automation Anywhere was named as a leader in both the AI and intelligent automation spaces. And this is important because those are actually two completely separate Gartner quadrants, but we're a leader in both. And this is not only in competition with our traditional automation vendors, but if you look at some of the vendors on this chart, you're going to see probably a lot of names you've never heard of before, unless you're really deep in the AI and ML world. There's a whole new set of emerging vendors that are coming out and they're building agentic systems. And so the reason I share this with you is, feel confident that as you're building on top of A360, you're actually building on a leader, not only in automation, but also in the world of agentic process automation. This is a term that we coined about a year ago as we began to launch AI Agent Studio. And we actually believe that we're a fantastic platform to allow you to continue investing and growing by building agentic offerings and solutions. All right, next slide. So I'm going to step through a couple pieces. These are going to be some of the features and capabilities that exist within the A360 platform. And you're actually going to see these in Charlie's demo here just in a second. So first is our AI Agent Studio capability. As I mentioned, this has been in the platform for a number of years. This gives you the ability to go and design and build these now new next generation autonomous goal-oriented AI agents that have access to tools across the platform. As you would imagine, it's utilizing a lot of the same tooling and capabilities that you've been familiar with already. So if you've had a deep level of investment in A360, if you spend a lot of time in the control room, you're going to see how it's very easy to start building these AI agents and tie them into different parts of the platform. Speaking of different parts of the platform, in the next slide, I think we talk a little bit about how you can start to also orchestrate all of these agents together. Now, as I mentioned earlier, AI agents can call out to tools, and one of those tools can be an agent. So we can achieve multi-agent orchestration that way. We also like to think about things from a total business process perspective as well. And so in an upcoming release, capability to go and take these AI agents and then actually add them as first-class citizens directly into your business processes via Process Composer is a brand new capability that we're super excited about. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up my time. Charlie, I'm going to hand it over to you and let you take the team through why agents are different than RPA and how do you think about moving from an RPA world into an AI agent world, and then really what everyone's here to see, which is how does everything work.
All
Charlie?
right, cool. Yeah. Thanks, Jason. All right, let's get started. Maybe the next slide. Yeah. So there's a couple of differences between, right, agents and sort of typical RPA. And as I go through this, it's, I'm showing you sort of what might be a complicated case, but just because it's complex doesn't mean that necessarily needs an AI agent. It's something usually where you have something where, you have some thought process or some sort of something more than a decision that has to be made. So for example, though, like on this slide, right, what I'm going to show you in the demo too is a claims example. It doesn't have to necessarily be your industry. It's not, right? Insurance claims is not everyone's industry, but it hits on a lot of the same types of things that you might hit in different industries. So in this case, it's someone has insurance with a company for stolen property. Let's say their bike got stolen, they're putting in a claim. Well, if you think about what you need in today's world, you'll probably need their account details, the policy information, the details of where the item was stolen, maybe the police report. And so you might end up creating like a standard, let's say, automation like this, where you've got a lot of if conditions. Let's say if the police report says this, then do this. If I don't have the policy report ID, then reach out to this person, whatever it may be. You've got all these different sort of flows you have to think about. If you go down another slide, I yeah, go next slide, please. Yeah, you'll see it just kind of continues, right? It's a real case where you might have a lot of different decision points, and you might ultimately realize that there's some intelligence that has to happen where you can't really automate what you wanted to automate, right? And so if you go down a little bit further, right, the next slide, you'll see that with an AI agent, it actually becomes simpler, right? An AI agent, again, sort of like Jason, you talked about a digital employee, or you can call it a specialist on a team, right? But the idea is that I can give it a goal, in this case, collect the details needed for the claim for stolen property. Give it a role, you're a stolen property claim specialist, right? And I can give an action plan that just says, get the following details for the claim. And then all I have to do is tell it, hey, here are the automations from our platform, right? Here are the tools that you'll have access to, right? And it has the default descriptions for whatever you have for those tools. And the agent then can intelligently pick which tool it needs to use. In fact, you'll see that in the demo. There's nothing I did that told it which tool to use when. I just told it what each tool did. I told it what it needed to do, and it figured out what order to call the tools in. Right? And this is, essentially the same as what you saw earlier. It's just the agent is making those decisions on what step to do next. And it can intelligently change based on the context, right? So if something changes where it gets some response that you might not have expected, it can figure out what to do next. All right, and I think that's it for the first two slides. I think the next one's demo. Could you just go as the next one real quick? Shreya? Yeah. Okay, we can do a poll and then I think the demo is next.
All right, looks like the poll is asking, as you embark on your agentic journey, which of the following is the most important? We've got four here. You can actually stack rank these for us. So priority one, obviously being the most important, priority four being the one you think about probably, fourth in this case. So ability to utilize tools and agents from different systems, traceability and agent execution, and insights into why tools were used, evaluation tools that provide insight into the accuracy of agents, or operational evidence that can show insights to actual value provided by agents. So we're going to give you a couple more seconds to think through these. and kind of figure out, which one of these are going to be most important, and then rank those down from second, third, and fourth important. They're all important. We recognize that, and when we talk to customers, a lot of customers have questions about these very topics. We're really excited to see what your perspective is. All right, Trey, I think maybe we can wrap that up. Let's take a look at the results. Oh, wow. Okay, great insights here from the team. I would say half of you, just at 50%, I think, said that the ability to utilize tools and agents from different systems is probably the first priority for you. I think as we start to look through that, traceability and agent execution being also very, very important, probably secondary. Evaluation is probably tied with third of operational evidence. So those are actually very similar to what we see from customers as well as we look through these different pieces, simply because we recognize, as I mentioned earlier, agents are going to be on every single different platform. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to be less important that you think about, which is the only platform I build agents on, but what is the platform that allows you to go to orchestrate those agents all together? All right. So I think, Charlie, with that, we can probably stop sharing, Shreya, and turn it over for the demo.
Yeah, I'm ready for the demo.
Let's do it.
Do it. All right. First, for those who've used our platform, this screen, by the way, should look very familiar. It's just where you go to create any automation. So if I was going to create an agent, I would just select the AI agent option. Right. And so I'll just call this, we'll follow sort of the same example I already did, new claims agent. All right. And now the first thing is, I am not a prompt engineering expert, despite all these sort of research and everything that I'm trying to make sure that I learn. I don't expect any of you to be prompt engineering experts to think through exactly how do I structure this prompt so the LM or the agent will understand it best. So instead, we start off with this pop-up. What would you like the agent to do? Right? And just use your own language. You don't have to think about how to structure it. So in my case, you are a claims agent. Your job is to collect all of the needed detail for, and I'm going to leave in the mistypes for a claim, because the cool thing is it'll handle the mistypes okay. You know, you need to collect the claims, policy, and police report data. All right, that's all I'm going to type. So you guys, this is live. You're literally seeing everything that I just typed. I just want to show you. So now what it's doing for me is it's actually creating the prompt. And I call this essentially unlimited templates, right? It's not going to be, from day one, you're not going to be able to click on it right away and get exactly what you want. Your business may have slightly different requirements, may have slightly different flows, whatever it may be. But now I can go in here though and see, okay, it's already written a best practice prompt for me, just from those 2 sentences that I wrote, by the way. Gave it a role, right? It's a claims agent specializing in insurance claim processing data. It's got a goal. The goal is to collect all the necessary data for an insurance claim, claim details, and so on. And then it's got everything else written for me, the assumptions, the actual process step by step. And actually, one of the things that I found I found pretty cool is it even puts things in there that, again, I didn't write, but makes me think, oh wait, I need to create an automation for that. Or, oh wait, I need to do this for that particular step. Yes, right, I need that. So, here it includes, request information about the claimant's identity. Maybe there's some database that you're like, oh, whoops, I forgot to create a connection to that database, right? For whatever it may be. Talks about cross-checking, documents collecting, all this kind of thing that I, again, may not even thought through all this, and I can go through and now edit it as needed. But this is the first step. So we have a prompt. The next part is the tools. Right, so I actually already went ahead and created the tools that I knew the claim agent would need. But just to be clear, when I say tools, they are just standard automations on the platform. I don't have to do anything special to the automation. We didn't do any sort of changes in the development on the automation themselves. You're just going to do what you normally do. So in this case, I'm going to add, let's say as an example, a tool for claims use. Right? So this is actually, again, just a standard automation that collects the information for a claim. Right? And I have others for different purposes, and I'll show you in a second an actual like running this, right? So there's policy details and so on. So, and then I even have a police report one. But for the sake of time, I'm going to show you one that I already did. Where am I going? After all, yeah, I'll show you here. Wait, that's my email. All right, well, hang on a second. I'm going to go close this. There we go. So here's one I already did. Again, I added, I made some changes from the standard, which I expect everyone will do. I had the template. I told exactly what data it needed to get. But just to be clear, I did not tell it which tools to use. Here's the sort of list of tools that I gave it, the claim details, the policy details, the report details. And also we enabled the feature to go to a human as needed. So we wanted to make this really easy. In the world of AI agents today, you're likely going to need some way to get to a human, right? Whether it be for a particular step or just, hey, look, if you get stuck, reach out to a human for help. And so we wanted to make that easy. So all you have to do is you enable the human in the loop step. You can give it a tool description for when it should use that tool, right? In terms of just, in this case, it doesn't even say really when, it just says, reach out if you're stuck. So I'm not giving it an exact thing. It's just, if you're stuck, reach out to the human. And what this will do, and you'll see this in a second, it'll just present the question that the agent creates and an area where the business user can respond in free text. So let me run this. For the first release, you're going to only be able to run agents from within a process, but you can think of agents themselves like a process. So think of it as a sub-process in here. And future releases, it will be standalone also. So here you can see I dragged in just to show you just an agent just like you would with any other step, right? And I configured it here. Now I'm just going to click run. All right, and I happen to know that one of the claim IDs is this, so I'll type that in. All right, and now what it's doing is it is running the agent. And so if I go here, right, again, for the sake of time, I just went to one that already ran, but it's from the exact same process. So you've got, this is the agent sort of thinking through what it needs to do. You can see it's saying output of the claim ID, and that's actually what I put in. That claim ID is being sent to the claim details tool that I showed you. Also, I want to note that this text on the left side is not created by me. This is actually created by the agent, by the LLM, right? All we told it to do was give text that sort of details or explains what it's doing, like a title, and it did that already. And here it's thinking again, it gets the input from the policy ID, and it is also able to get, well, the police report ID and use those. And here, again, I didn't tell it which tools to use when. It actually realized from the claim details, it got the police report ID and the policy ID, and it realized, hey, I can run both those tools at the same time. I don't need to run them in sequential order. So it actually ran both here, you can see at the same time, got the response, did some tracking just to say, hey, look, do I have all the data that I need? And then it thought through it and said, you know what, I actually don't. So if you look at this, and I'll zoom in a bit if it's easier for folks, I did not write this text. And I literally ran this just like a second, I think, before. There's a time here, yeah, even right after actually we started. So this is really live. You can see, please provide the customer support priority level for claim ID C10001. All other required data has been collected. So I actually purposely created this agent in a way where I knew it wouldn't have that one piece of data. That was how I was testing it. And you can see here, it's asking me for that information. Now, I can just write it back in human language if I want. The level for priority is high. Oops. Right, and I can just click confirm. I could also just write the word hi if I wanted to. So now this is thinking again. It says, okay, I've got the answer from the human. And again, the cool thing about that form is it's just going to provide whatever text the agent needs. Right? What does it need to ask you for? And it's done. It says it's got, right, everything. Right, and so that is what sort of you end up with as a result. Let me zoom out a little bit more. While we're here, before I sort of move on, Jason, do we have any questions? Like I can quickly, anything that
We've
would,
yeah, I've been busy answering questions in the
anything
Q&A.
should I re-highlight or highlight something so far that I haven't?
Yeah, there's been a couple of questions. So first of all, I think there's been a resounding round of applause for
Cool.
things like the prompt generator. I think that got a lot of love and attention, which is awesome. This was I think I'll say it because Charlie won't. This was a little bit of a pet project for him personally. Whenever we started doing some of the early product discovery on AI agents, he realized very quickly that, we're not prompt engineers, we're not context engineers. And so whatever we could do to make it easier for customers to get started quickly. He championed up, and it turned out great. There's also been some questions on things like, can we train the agents to be hyper specific on a given use case and scenario? And so, yeah, we talked in the Q&A about how there's a couple different ways to accomplish that. You can obviously utilize fine-tuned models if you want to do that. We have full access to that. You could go and preload, previous actions that the agent has taken in the past, or even human agents, into something like a RAG DB, and then utilize that as a tool within the agent. And then you can also go, obviously, and as the agent is executing and, again, writing that out to a log, you can use that in consideration for some kind of context grounding within the agent itself.
Cool.
I think this is also a good point to mention, and I didn't show this in the slides. We do have a whole set of AI agent accelerators and solutions that are pre-built into custom sort of domains, verticals, and horizontal solutions. Those have AI agent capabilities today, and those will continue to be updated with some of this new AI agent abilities in the future. So keep an eye out for those.
All right. Cool. So there's not another area in the agent sort of side that I should refocus on. I can show a little bit of a really early evaluation sort of screens if that helps.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a great point because there was some good questions around that. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about availability. So there are some questions in the chat, a couple different questions around availability. So a couple things I'll share with the team on the call. First of all, we have not had AI Agent Studio in the community edition for a while now. We've heard that that is a big ask from customers like yourselves, and we are going to be bringing in the second half of this year. So probably within the next couple of months, AI Agent Studio will show up within the community edition. So you'll have the ability to start taking advantage of that. It will not have this AI agent capability at launch, but we are going to be bringing that in a subsequent launch as well. So at launch, in Community Edition, you'll have AI access to model connections, access to AI skills, the ability to build those into API tasks and task bots and things like that. And then you'll get this sort of new version of AI agents in the future. Second thing I'll mention, if you're a current customer today utilizing AI Agent Studio, you just went to go check your CR. You said, I don't see AI agent on my new file new in the control room in the repo. It's because we haven't released it yet. So one thing that we'll show you is after Charlie's done with his demo and we jump back into the slides, this is a really exciting announcement that's coming up in a future release. This is going to be something that's going to be released to customers in the next several weeks. We do have a preview opportunity if you're interested in participating in that. And there'll be a slide once we jump back into the deck to talk more about how to get access to that. And then, Charlie, I think maybe if we do have an opportunity to talk a little bit about evaluations and show some of the capability there, that would be something that I think the team would be interested in seeing.
Oh, okay. So we want to wait for that till later on then.
Is there anything else in the demo that you want to show?
No, unless we wanted to, unless there's any other particular things, I think this was sort of the core of it.
All right, let me look at the Q&A then. Let's say,
Right.
okay, there's a question around how does an agent extract details from a document? I
Mm,
understand that tools are used, but if the data comes from a scanned document, how is this extraction performed?
yeah.
You want to talk
So
about that?
you talk about that real quick. So the agent for us is just another piece of our platform. And I don't know if you guys are aware, we have a product called document automation, right? That actually is specifically tuned to pull data easily out of docs. And it's better than just sort of sending a document to ChatGPT. Um, so what you would do here is if you wanted to have some, let's say, document extraction, right, you would add that, for example, here in the future, we'll actually have the agent have the ability, on the roadmap to just run document extraction itself as a tool. But here you use our best of breed, uh, best practice document automation platform to extract that document data and send it to the agent.
There's another question around, it said, don't we need to create a process or create workflow and use tasks? Will workflow automatically be created? Do you want to tackle about how agents and work and processes are intertwined?
Yeah. So one thing is, talking about workflows, obviously processes here, this is our, our process composer, that's sort of your standard workflow, right? And when I get to the bottom, if this is a successful path, I mark it as completed, right? If it's not, I can mark it as failed. One of the key things, and frankly, even for me, as we started developing this a long time back, to think about is that this idea that there is no workflow in the sense of how we think about it, like in this sense. So like if I look here, I go back to a prompt, you'll see I still have completed and failed, the same options, but it's not at the end of I don't have a workflow to show, right? So I don't actually need to define it. What I'm doing is I'm just telling the LM when to set this state. So here our default, and I can change this if I want, but this state must be set if you were able to achieve your goal. This state must be set if you're not able to achieve your goal, right? And it knows what its goal is. So the LM knows, here's my goal. If I can't meet my goal, then I'm going to end as a process would, right? In a workflow, I'm going to end as failed. If I did, again, like in a process, I'm going to end as completed if I did meet my goal. And when it comes to the tools, there's no particular order to these tools. Think of it like you're a specialist on a team. You know how to do a certain job. Maybe it's your first day, but you generally understand it. Someone might say, here's an email with the 5 applications you have access to. Here's a description of what they do and how to use them. You can look at those applications, right? And you can look at the details and say, yeah, I can figure this out. And day one, you can probably get some work done. And then, by the way, if you know who's on your team and you get stuck somewhere where it's like, I'm not the specialist in this, someone else is, just like human in the loop, you can reach out to them. But you're not necessarily ahead of time writing down all the different if else conditions. You're sort of figuring it out as you go, which is exactly the same thing that this agent is doing.
Awesome. Charlie, there was a couple questions around what does governance look like?
Yeah.
We want to jump over and show kind of what this is going to look like in the preview.
Yes, I'll show it for, here we go. Here we go. So this is an example of
And
the
Charlie,
governance
I
law.
think your screen
Oh, I'm
sharing
not
might be.
sharing. Yep. Oh, I apologize. Yeah, I wasn't sharing earlier either. My fault. So this is what I was trying to share with the process. Let me go quickly back. Doc extraction. This is the the step in a process. Remember, we talked about you extract the information, you can then send it to the agent. And then I was just showing the tools have no particular order, right? And I was showing you've got a completed state, a failed state, right? And same thing that you would have in a process. So we designed it to have similar states to a process, right? Completed and failed. So again, it's not deterministic in the same way that we think of a process. You just type in what it means for the LM. Again, so for the LM, achieves a goal, it's completed. Let me go to the governance. Hang on. This one. So if you're familiar with our AI skills, you'll see something similar. What you'll see here is you'll see all the information that is sent to the LM and all the information that is received from the LM. So you can even see here, including some of our additional text that we're adding to make sure that these agents are reliable. So you see all this data, you see exactly what we're sending to the LM. And here, for example, in the first response that we see from the LM, you'll see that it actually calls the claim details tool and even tells me why. And this is, again, this is preview. In GA, you guys see it in GA. The reasoning, for example, you'll see that in the UI that I showed you earlier. We'll have a separate test UI just for that purpose. We'll still have this also. But I just want to show you here, it even says the claim ID was provided. It's retrieving all the claims to begin the stolen property verification process. Right. And that's, again, that's what the LM wrote. That's what the agent wrote. And you can see all the back and forth. Go further down right, until the very end, where you can see this is its response where it said, hey, I was able to achieve my goal, and here's all the data. Right. And again, that's here, but in the automations, just like any other automation, you've got inputs and outputs, and you'll see all the outputs that you can use. One of the key things here is, again, the descriptions are really important. It's like talking to a human in that way. I've got to tell it, hey, what do these variables mean? So it knows what type of content it should put in each one of these fields.
Awesome. I want to be respectful of time. I know we've had a lot of Q&A coming in as well. Maybe one more question here,
Right.
Charlie, before we jump back over into the deck. Question is, can you please explain where all the data collected by the agent is getting stored? Is it configured in the process? So I think Charlie showed a little bit of how some of that's getting stored in our AI governance logs. Do you want to expand upon that, Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so there's two things, right? The messages that the agent sends are just sort of the back and forth messages between, let's say, our platform and the LLM, and that data is stored within sort of the backend, same sort of areas that you might have, when the process sends variables to each step and things like that. Outside of that, though, the agent really it's not a storage platform, right? It's just the only thing it stores is what it needs to send back and forth for the message history, but it's not anything more than that. The governance specifically, though, if you're talking about this data, this is stored on a specific sort of security database platform with all of our other governance data to keep it secure. So only those who have access can see it. But again, outside of that, the agent itself is just really it's a person that's communicating back and forth, and you store the data wherever sort of you want to store it.
Awesome.
All right,
Great.
I think we also received a few questions about how can we try this and whether it's available in the control room for trial, which I think is a perfect segue for us to go back in the deck and share this. All right, you can see
Awesome.
the screen.
Thank you, Trey. So as we mentioned, we're really excited to bring this new non-deterministic, autonomous, goal-oriented agents into the platform. And we are continuing to make preview slots available to customers that want to provide feedback on this capability. We are currently in preview with about a half dozen different customers, so there's a queue of those. But if you want to get on the list, if you want to figure out and try to get access to preview and see what this next version of AI agents are going to be like, you can take out your phone or your camera and scan that QR code. Or if you want to, you can click on the link that is included in orange and underlined there on this slide. Both should take you to a form you can fill out. Please provide your name, the name of the company that you happen to work for, as well as your email address. And once a slot becomes available, we can reach out and see if we can get you access. As I mentioned, we're also going to be bringing the broader AI Agent Studio offering into the Community Edition. That should come in sometime later this year. This version of AI Agents will not be there initially, but we will look to bring that in a future release. And then commercially, AI Agents is going to be made available to customers that are entitled for either the enterprise platform or APA SKUs within A360. Those should be made available to customers, and cloud tenants are going to be updated in the October timeframe. So those will be shared up there. This is also going to be a large part of our .38 What's New announcements, and we're going to have a whole separate webinar on this, as well as a whole bunch of other really exciting features that are coming in the October release.
We have a very exciting AMA happening right in the community forum. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to go even log on to a Zoom link. All you have to do is just stay tuned to our community dev forum, and our product manager Vineet Pujari is going to be answering all of your questions, well, almost all of your questions, all the questions that meet the community guidelines. On September 2nd from 6 to 9 p.m. IST, he will be answering questions that are related to automation anywhere, to career, to almost anything, provided it's PG-13 and community guidelines friendly. All you have to do is just stay tuned for a post by Vineet on the developers forum, and you can just drop your questions in the chat and he will be taking them up and answering them live in the chat. All right, that's all you have to do for the AVAA activity on September 2nd, 6 to 9 p.m. All right, with that, we come to the penultimate slide, which is when is the next dev meetup happening? The next dev meetup is happening on September 25th. Stay tuned for those announcements as well. All you have to do is just subscribe to our events page or just scan this QR code to stay updated with all our events. They will be up on our link tree, and you will be able to know which event is happening first. And yeah, we hope to see you at the next Dev Meetup. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Hope you all enjoyed this session. If you did, just tag us on social, spread the word, and sign up for the link that we mentioned earlier in our presentation.